What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and this one I'm going to talk about what's going on with the overall market and break down some very important levels. I'm also going to talk about tomorrow because we have even more data coming out that could affect how the market ends up moving. I'm going to break down what the technicals are suggesting for SPY, Tesla, and many other tickers. But before breaking anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I'm firstly not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks plus a $50 cash reward. The offer ends in just about 10 hours, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, now let's talk about the market. How are things looking? So I just want to break down what's happening with SPY right now. In my video from yesterday, I talked about how there was both a gap up and a gap down scenario depending on what PCE caused. And because the market looked like it was gapping up this morning, I basically deleted the other one. I want to focus on this scenario I had drawn out. And then I told you all that we're likely going to see SPY try to get a little pop, retest this 453 zone, maybe go a little higher. It really depends on how much we ended up popping by. And then with the triple bearish divergence developing on the RSI, or MACD, and some other signals, they all suggest the market would likely get a rejection very soon. And not only did we see the signals on like the larger time frames, also on the smaller time frames, they were just telling us the same thing. A rejection was likely coming, and that's what's happening right now. You could see SPY hit this high right here, almost forming like a double top like formation, and it just got rejected. It's starting to cool off, and once again we're approaching our 451 support. If that fails us, I'm going to be watching the 50 EMA at 450.6 around there, and below that we have 450 as support. So right now it's a little bit tight, but it's testing 451, and we are looking like we're favoring the bears for now. Now, this is what SPY is looking like. I also have it over here on Webull. I have both the 5 minutes on the left and the 30 minutes time frame on the right. These are two very, very good time frames to look at. As you can see, we're getting very close to the 50 EMA. I'm going to be watching that on the 30 minutes time frame once again, very close to 450.6 if we end up breaking below 451, which it looks like we are. So anyways, the market is weakening. The market is starting to cool off as we expected. And now when the market's cooling off like this, it's very important that we're ready for what's going to happen tomorrow. So the market's looking weaker, right? We're approaching the very end of August, and we're approaching September, of course. For tomorrow, I just want to remind you all that tomorrow is going to be the last Friday before a long weekend because we have Labor Day off. The market is going to be closed on Monday for Labor Day. So Friday is going to be the last day before a long weekend. And typically when that happens, the market tends to be slower before long weekends. To add on to this, I just want to mention that we have some important data coming out tomorrow morning that could also affect the market, just like how PCE did today. So 1 hour before the market opens for tomorrow, we have the non-farm payrolls, the unemployment rate, the labor force participation rate, all these employment numbers, which are going to be very, very important. This could also cause the market to either gap up or gap down. So if you're comfortable holding through this, it's your choice. If not, right, this could still have a very big effect on the markets, and this may end up dictating the flow for tomorrow. Then after that, just as a reminder, every 15 minutes for the first 30 minutes of the day. So at about 9:45 a.m. tomorrow, we have the PMI report, another PMI for the manufacturing data. So this could cause some more volatility. And then besides that, that's all there is for the data for tomorrow. But the biggest piece of data is going to be the employment numbers coming out in the morning. So make sure you're prepared for that just to be safe. Now, from a technical standpoint, if we just ignore the numbers, if we ignore all the data coming out, and we just look at the technicals, I'm going to switch over to just one chart on SPY. You could see, like I told you guys earlier, we had this bearish divergence on SPY that was developing. So if you look at, let's just see this. Let me zoom out. You can see the triple bearish divergence on the RSI on SPY, and then we had a bearish divergence as well on the MACD, all suggesting that the market was in the topping process. Now, this was heavily dictated by Aapl. If you look at Aapl, it was trying to fill its gap. It came close, but ended up coming short. It also formed a bearish divergence after pumping so much without any necessarily like significant downside. So that's part of why the market is slowing down. Now Aapl is dictating it as well, and Aapl is still starting to look a little bit more bearish. Now for tomorrow, things could change. It really depends on a bunch of different factors, but as we approach the support, the next major support on Aapl is going to be very close to this low right here at 187.25. If that breaks, Aapl is going to be heading towards 186.73. Now, this is important because when Aapl sinks, as Aapl is looking bearish right now, right? As Aapl sinks, this is going to drag down SPY and the QQQ, and you could see SPY is already reaching our targets, testing the 50 EMA right now. If this breaks, 450 is going to be the next level. It is continuing to look relatively weak. Now, it's not just these stocks. I was also talking about like Tesla being impacted by all of this volatility. Tesla's coming down. To me, it looks like it's going to test the 50 at 255.5. If it breaks that, it's going to eventually continue to sink. Now, we had this head and shoulders that's technically still valid and slanted, but like I said before in my earlier videos, it still looks bearish to me. As long as it doesn't hold like 260, it still looks bearish in my opinion. And we could be watching for Tesla to come all the way down, in my opinion, to about 250 or lower by tomorrow. There's a real possibility and a risk of that. And right now, the technicals are suggesting that's very much possible. So Tesla is looking a little weaker to me still. It didn't hold 260, and I do think there's more downside coming from a technical standpoint for tomorrow. I think the whole market could have more downside, but what makes me a little bit wary of saying that would be this unemployment data. I want to see how that looks first before we do see even more significant downside. So this could cause the markets try to gap up or kind of like bounce a little bit, but it really depends on what these numbers look like. But if we just ignore the numbers, like I was saying, from a technical standpoint, we look bearish. Based off technicals, we do look more bearish. So you want to just be open-minded. And I'm also calling out the numbers because if you're uncomfortable with holding a long-term short position through all this data coming out tomorrow morning, that's your choice. If you want to hold it, you could. If not, it is what it is, right? But the technicals do look bearish, so you should be fine, in my opinion. But just to be safe, I wouldn't necessarily like hold way too many positions overnight with all the data coming out. I would just try to like be a little careful, take some profits. Nothing wrong with doing that. Not financial advice. Anyways, going back to some other tickers, we have the IWM starting to turn bearish on the MACD, coming all the way back down to 187. The Russell 2000 is going to be dictated by those small caps. Looking at the QQQ, it's also looking weaker. QQQ is breaking below 378. The previous resistance here becoming support, the breakout area. I was talking about this getting tested, and now we're going to be watching 376.29 as the next major support. If we end up breaking below 377, 377 is going to be support as well, so watch those levels very carefully. It is looking weaker on the 30 minutes time frame. It looks like there could be more downside coming. The odds do favor that. Nvda, just like what I predicted, Nvda could either get like a little pop and drop, or it would just start dropping from open. It's now testing 490 as support. The next level, if it breaks below that, is going to be 487.75. Then we have 485 below that. And we can most definitely see more downside. Looks more bearish on Nvidia. Microsoft is coming down too. NASDAQ and SPX. One of the things I told you about NASDAQ yesterday was this thing was approaching some critical resistance around the 14,000 area. Plus, we had the bearish divergences developing on it. So no surprise, NASDAQ is cooling off. So is SPX and the other futures out there. Completely expected as the dollar was hitting support. I also called this out yesterday. The dollar was approaching 103. And we were trying to bounce off of that the last time I checked. So going back, let's just go back to where this level was. Back here, the dollar hit 103 yesterday near close. Then it started to bounce. And then as soon as we opened, the dollar started uptrending from 103 support. So that's part of why, the market is selling off. I called this out yesterday. If the dollar ended up getting that bounce off 103, this would cause a bit of a sell-off. So I wanted everyone to be prepared for that. And finally, just for a couple of others as reference, Amazon is showing some strength as it got a very, very nice pop. It's still green, but it's starting to look bearish. It's starting to slow down. Going to be watching these EMAs as support. Going to be watching it come all the way down to about 136.4, followed by 135.5 if it continues sinking. Looking weaker, Meta as well. No different from Amazon. We have this imbalance down here. It's approaching, actually approached it already at 295. It keeps sinking. We have this unfilled gap, I believe. Actually, no, we don't really have much of a gap here. It's very small at this point. But I could see it get very close to 293 if it keeps selling off like this. The market is once again weakening. This was expected. I called this out earlier, and SPY is continuing to test these levels. So you could see on the 30 minutes time frame, SPY tested the 50 EMA. You could see how it came down. It came right back up. It's trying to hold this as support. That was the level I was talking about, but it could still come down as we're still looking bearish overall. Hopefully this was helpful for all of you guys out there. Just as a reminder, we have some big data coming out tomorrow morning. If you're holding a long-term short position, you should be fine, in my honest opinion, not financial advice. But I wouldn't hold way too many positions because we could see this affect the market tomorrow morning, 1 hour before the market opens. But ultimately, right, if we just don't worry too much about this data, we are looking more bearish. It looks like the market has more downside coming. Nonetheless, I think SPY could, if it breaks below 450, I'm going to be watching 448. I think it's going to hit the 448 very, very quickly if we end up breaking below 450 very soon. And I think the odds favor more downside nonetheless, just to be clear with everyone. Uh, but like I said, if you're just trying to hold like a 1 day expiration option or holding very short term options, just be a little careful. Just know there's some data coming out tomorrow morning that could cause like a little bounce, maybe a gap up first before we continue lower. And besides that, please take care, everyone. Do what you have to do, and I'll most definitely see you guys in the next one. Thank you, and peace out.